Plankton isn't just a tiny villain. He's a genius trapped in a microscopic body, obsessed with destroying Mr. Krabs and stealing the Krabby Patty formula. On the outside, he's cunning, relentless, and always plotting his next move. But underneath the evil schemes, he's a bitter, lonely creature, consumed by jealousy and frustration. His brilliance can't save him from his own flaws, and no matter how many times he tries, he never quite gets what he truly wants, except failure. So grab your robot minions, dust off your evil laugh, and let's dive into the chaotic, ever-hungry world of Plankton. But before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. There's a reason Plankton lives in a steel bucket with blinking lights and no customers. Because Plankton is exactly where he's meant to be, before the story even starts. Alone, angry, always scheming. On the surface, Plankton's life looks like a repetitive joke. Failed plans, robotic sarcasm from his wife Karen, and zero revenue at the chum bucket. But that's only part of the picture. Plankton is a prisoner of belief. A belief that if he could just get the secret formula, everything would change. What we're watching, episode after episode, is a creature stuck in stasis. In Layman Fortune, a box of fortune cookies falls from the sky. Strangely, the fortunes start coming true. Most people see it as fun, but Plankton sees a chance. He sneaks in his own fake fortune, using a device to alter the ones that are already printed, causing them to scare customers away from the Krusty Krab. Some fortunes even say that eating at the chum bucket will make you live forever, and for once, people believe him. The chum bucket finally gets busy. Customers line up. The dining room fills. Plankton has what he always wanted: attention, success, power. But instead of enjoying it, he just stands there, watching it all like someone who doesn't trust what he's seeing. It's like he's waiting for someone to take it all away, and they do. The lie falls apart. The customers leave. The plan fails. And by the end of the episode, Plankton is stuck inside a fortune cookie, almost eaten in a Chinese restaurant. But for him, this isn't new. It's just another failed plan. Another small rise followed by the usual fall. Plankton's life is full of these moments. Quick wins, fast losses, then back to square one. In a strange way, he's used to it. He may not like losing, but at least he knows how it works. It's what he's practiced the most. In perfect chemistry, Plankton steps out of his usual routine for a short time. He works with Sandy on a science project, and for once, things feel different. She listens to him. She laughs at his jokes. She even calls him smart, and not in a mean way, but like she actually means it. For a moment, Plankton feels like he's respected, and it's a new experience. But it doesn't last. The longer he's treated like an equal, the more uncomfortable he becomes. Slowly, he starts slipping back into old habits. He begins plotting again because he feels that being treated with respect and being kind to others doesn't feel right to him. He's so used to being a villain that the idea of change makes him uneasy. So, just when things could have gone right, he ruins it. He locks Sandy and SpongeBob in a cage and tries to steal the formula again, as if he needs to prove, even to himself, that he hasn't really changed. By the time we see him in There Will Be Grease, there's a small sign of hope. A strange chemical accident connects his restaurant to the Krusty Krab and creates a new kind of grease that people actually want. Instead of stealing or tricking anyone, Plankton reluctantly agrees to work with Mr. Krabs. They create a product together, and the whole town wants it. Somehow, their business grows. For once, Plankton isn't alone, but it doesn't last. Things start to fall apart because the product isn't actually good. The more the business grows, the more tense things become. The grease makes people sick, and they demand refunds. But just like always, they blame each other. They argue, and everything falls apart. What happens next says a lot. The chum bucket and Krusty Krab both sink into the ground. The town moves on, but Plankton doesn't. He stays behind, already shouting and coming up with another plan, like nothing even happened. And maybe to him, it didn't, because failure for Plankton is something he understands. It's safe. It's what he's used to. That's the world Plankton inhabits long before the story asks him to change. Not a villain's lair, and not a prison either, but a space shaped entirely by repetition. He wakes, he builds, he plots, he fails. Then he does it again. The world outside may shift, but inside the chum bucket, the rhythm stays the same. Karen delivers her commentary, Plankton delivers his ambition, and in the quiet that follows, he convinces himself that next time will be different. What makes his life so tragic isn't the fact that he never wins. It's that he's built an identity around the chase. If he were to stop, if he were to let go of the formula, of the rivalry, of the idea that everything hinges on one stolen secret, he might have to ask what kind of person he is when he isn't fighting. And that's a question he's never been ready to face. So he doesn't. He goes back to work, and the lights at the chum bucket stay on. Plankton is stuck because deep down, he's scared of what winning might ask him to become. And that fear is exactly what cracks open when life unexpectedly gives him something real. The world rarely gives Plankton anything. That's how he sees it. He's used to being ignored, laughed at, pushed aside. He's small, his food is worse, and his plans always crash. But that doesn't mean he stops. If anything, the rejection just becomes part of the routine. He's not trying to be liked, he's trying to win. Then, one day, something strange happens. In the episode Plankton's Good Eye, a simple accident causes him to grow a second eye. An eye that suddenly changes everything. It sounds silly, another cartoon twist. But this eye does more than help him see. It changes how he feels. With this second eye, Plankton becomes different. He starts to notice other people's emotions, their kindness, their struggle. He sympathizes with everyone. Even SpongeBob, who was always just a target or a tool, begins to seem like someone worth understanding. The eye changes the way he looks at the world, and the world, in turn, starts looking back. SpongeBob welcomes him into a new rhythm, one that doesn't include stealing, lying, or shouting. They cook side by side, they talk, they laugh. For the first time, Plankton is part of something instead of trying to ruin it. It doesn't feel natural to him at first, but it's not entirely uncomfortable either. There's something in it that he can't ignore. He stops scheming. He cries over jellyfish. He calls Mr. Krabs friend. People don't run from him. They're not mocking him, and that throws him off. Plankton has never known what to do with softness. He's spent his entire life turning himself into something sharp, something that can't be moved, because in his mind, the world only respects force. Empathy is weakness. Success comes from taking, and now people are responding to something else, something he's never trusted: gentleness. This moment doesn't look like a turning point, but it is. The Krabby Patty formula takes a back seat. It's not the goal. It hardly even matters. That silence speaks louder than any line of dialogue. This isn't a break from the usual plot. This is the plot. For a short time, Plankton stops chasing and starts caring. He doesn't take anything. He gives something, but it doesn't feel safe. He doesn't know how to exist without a scheme. He doesn't know how to feel without armor. The longer he lives in this new softness, the more that fear creeps in. What if none of it is real? What if being gentle makes him invisible? So he walks away from it. He tears off the second eye, tosses it aside like a costume, says it made him weak. He mocks the idea of being good and runs back to what he knows best, the version of himself that plots, panics, and fails. It's tempting to call him a villain here, or to say he gave up, but the truth is more painful. When someone's identity is built on rejection, being accepted can feel unbearable. When you've only known walls, an open door feels like a trick. Plankton was offered something rare, not just friendship, but a new path. Not by SpongeBob, not even by the town, but by life itself. It gave him a glimpse of who he could be, and he turned away, simply because he didn't think he deserved it. That's the moment everything quietly shifts. The world made space for him, and he flinched. He went back to his loop, but now something has changed. He can't unsee it. He may return to his old ways, for now, but the memory is planted. The possibility has been shown. He's no longer just fighting crabs or chasing a recipe. Somewhere deep down, he's starting to wonder if there's another version of himself that doesn't need to chase at all. And once that thought exists, even in someone like Plankton, the story has already begun. Plankton rejected the kindness because it threatened everything he built to survive. And that same threat is exactly what drives him to run the moment real change becomes possible. Hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now, let's get back to the video. Plankton doesn't fear defeat. He fears not knowing who he is without it. There's a certain way Plankton expects people to treat him. Suspicion, fear, disgust. That's the script he's written for everyone around. It gives his life structure. If they hate him, then he knows where he stands. If they fight him, then he has a purpose. If they laugh, at least it means they're paying attention. So, when something interrupts it, even something gentle, it doesn't feel like hope. It feels like danger. In Fun, or FUN, that interruption comes in the form of SpongeBob. Tired of the endless fighting, SpongeBob makes a simple choice. He treats Plankton like a friend, as someone who could use some kindness. Plankton isn't sure what to do with it. At first, he plays along because it seems like a smart trick. If he pretends to be nice, maybe he can sneak into the Krusty Krab. Maybe SpongeBob will hand him the formula without a fight. It's just another angle, another performance. But then, something strange happens. He starts enjoying himself. They sing together, float through jellyfish fields, blow bubbles, and talk like two people who have more in common than they thought. For a short while, Plankton isn't pretending. He's not trying to steal anything. He's not even thinking about Mr. Krabs. He's just there, laughing, clued, and maybe for the first time, safe. That safety is exactly what scares him. Because if the friendship is real, then his story has to change. He can't be the misunderstood villain anymore. He can't say the world is against him if someone like SpongeBob sees good in him. And if he admits that, he has to let go of the grudge that defines him. Plankton was never trained for peace. He was built to push back. So when someone finally puts down the weapon and opens a hand, it doesn't feel like an invitation. It feels like exposure, like standing without armor. Instead of trusting the moment, he retreats. He betrays SpongeBob. He goes back to his old routine, tries to steal the formula, resets the loop. He laughs it off like the whole thing was a trick, but SpongeBob doesn't laugh. He says something honest. "You must have really meant it." And that's the worst part, because SpongeBob is right. Plankton did mean it, and he still ran. Later, in the episode One Course Meal, we see another side of that fear. From humiliation, Mr. Krabs discovers that Plankton has a deep fear of whales. Instead of using it for a quick joke, he turns it into a weapon. He dresses up like Pearl, hides in dark corners, haunts Plankton's mind with whale noises and surprise attacks until Plankton breaks down. This is a different kind of breakdown. It eats at him until he can't function. At one point, Plankton even stands in the street, shaking, saying he'd rather end it all than keep living like this. People see it as a joke, but it lands hard. Because this isn't about losing, it's about losing himself. He's terrified, not just of whales, but of what the fear means. It strips away everything he uses to protect himself. His voice, his ego, his false confidence. He becomes small in a way that isn't funny. It's painful, and nobody, not even Karen, knows what to say. It's not that he never gets a chance to change. He does. People reach out. The world gives him quiet moments where he could stop fighting, let go of the anger, and finally breathe. But he turns away, because admitting he's not alone, that someone actually might care, that his pain just dressed up as pride, that's harder than losing. It's easier to call yourself a villain than to admit that you've been scared for your whole life. So, when those moments come, when he could choose something better, he doesn't. He runs every time. Because if he stops fighting, he has to start living, and Plankton doesn't know how to live without a goal. That mission, steal the formula, beat Krabs, rule the town, is what keeps him from looking inward. If he fails, at least he still has a purpose. If he wins, maybe he'll finally be worth something. But if he steps away from it, even for a second, he's left with nothing. Plankton runs because change demands honesty, and the only person he'll ever let that honesty in for is the one voice he keeps trying to replace. Some people wait their whole lives for someone to believe in them. Plankton doesn't. He believes in himself, loudly, constantly, desperately. If he repeats it enough, "I'm a genius, I deserve more, I was cheated," maybe he won't fear the silence after all. But there's someone who does hear it. She hears everything. Karen is the only one who sees all of him. His victories, which don't last, his failures, which always return, his fake confidence, and the moments he doesn't realize anyone's watching. She's been at his side for years, offering advice, warnings, sarcasm, and the occasional glitchy eye roll. At first, it seems like background noise, like Plankton needs her the way a child needs a nightlight, just to make the dark less obvious. But slowly, something changes. In Karen 2.0, Plankton decides she's outdated. He replaces her with a newer model, Karen 2.0. This new version is sleeker, more agreeable, even cheerful. She encourages him, tells him he's right, supports every ridiculous plan without a second thought. And for a few minutes, Plankton is thrilled, until he isn't. Because the truth is, he doesn't need someone to just cheer him on. He needs someone to challenge him, someone who actually knows what he's trying to do. Not just the plan, but the pain underneath it. Karen isn't there to flatter him. She's there to push him when he's stuck in his own lies. When the new model can't do that, when she becomes more puppet than partner, Plankton starts to miss the one voice that ever gave him real perspective. And that's the shift. He doesn't just want a tool. He needs someone to help him see what he refuses to face. The difference between obsession and purpose. Between control and growth. Between being feared and being understood. Karen isn't always gentle. She gives him nothing but the truth, and she doesn't ask him to like it. That's what makes her so dangerous to his comfort. But it's also what makes her valuable. And deep down, he knows it. Plankton isn't the kind of person who asks for help out loud. His pride is too loud. His wounds too old. But when he rebuilds Karen and brings her back, he doesn't say, "I missed you." He says, "That model was broken." That's as close to vulnerable as he gets. But his actions say more. He listens. He lets her speak, even when he disagrees. He starts to treat her less like a machine and more like what she's always been, a partner. And that quiet change matters. Because Plankton doesn't trust anyone. He believes betrayal is inevitable. That's why he never truly bonded with SpongeBob. That's why even when the town cheers him on, he pulls away. But Karen doesn't offer blind loyalty or fake praise. She knows who he was before the failures made him bitter. And sometimes she reminds him. That's something no one else in his world can do. In The Algae's Always Greener, Plankton gets the chance to trade places with Mr. Krabs. It's supposed to be the dream scenario. He finally runs the Krusty Krab. Everyone fears him. SpongeBob works for him, and the formula is his. But instead of happiness, he finds discomfort. No one respects him. SpongeBob sees him as a boss, not a friend. And worst of all, Karen's gone. Without her, the victory feels empty. He learned something no machine could teach, that being in charge doesn't mean being seen. People may listen to you out of fear, but that's not the same as being understood. And without someone there to hold up a mirror, someone who knows your worst moments and stays anyway, you don't grow. You just repeat yourself louder. By the end, he reverses the swap and returns to his own life. On the outside, it looks like he's just going back to losing, but something subtle has changed. He doesn't mock Karen when she speaks. He doesn't toss her aside when she interrupts. There's a quiet between them now. Not cold, but familiar. The kind you share with someone who's seen you at your worst and didn't leave. He still calls himself a genius, but the voice beside him is grounding him. Karen gives him the one thing he won't take from anyone else: perspective. And over time, it starts to sink in. Plankton may never say it. He may never admit he needs anyone. But when things fall apart, she's still there. And little by little, that changes how he reacts when things go wrong. Because losing is easier when someone's still watching. When someone still believes in the version of you that might still exist beneath all the bitterness. When someone still believes in the version of you that might still exist beneath all the bitterness. Plankton still thinks the formula is the goal, but slowly he's beginning to understand. Maybe what he really wants isn't victory. Maybe what he wants is someone who doesn't stop telling him the truth, even when he's not ready to hear it. Plankton started to change because even winning began to feel like losing, and that quiet failure is what led him to the next threshold. For a long time, Plankton believed that failure wasn't the end of anything. It was just the middle of another scheme. If one idea didn't work, another would. If today went badly, tomorrow was a blank page. His life was built on resets. Fall down, scream, try again. It gave him purpose, or at least the illusion of it. But something happens over time, whether he notices it or not. The resets don't hit the same. The shouting sounds thinner. The new ideas don't feel new. There's no single moment where everything changes, but the world he once controlled begins to feel unfamiliar, even while it looks the same. In Welcome to the Chum Bucket, he wins what he always thought he wanted: SpongeBob. After a simple bet, Krabs loses him. Suddenly, Plankton doesn't have to steal or scheme. SpongeBob works for him, legally and public. With his new employee, the Krabby Patty formula should be within reach. But what Plankton gets is confusion. SpongeBob shows up ready to work, but he isn't smiling. He isn't singing or flipping patties with passion. He follows instruction, but without joy. Plankton pushes harder, thinking results will come. But each day, the kitchen grows colder. The formula remains out of reach. SpongeBob becomes slower, duller, emptier. Plankton thought power would feel like control. Instead, it feels like silence. He realizes, quietly, that he hasn't won anything. He has a body in the kitchen, not a heart in the room. And for someone who built his life around domination, this is a bitter surprise. Obedience without connection means nothing. When SpongeBob is eventually released, Plankton doesn't fight it. He doesn't argue. He simply lets go. What he had wasn't what he imagined. And for a moment, even he can tell it's not worth chasing like this. And he doesn't talk about it with Karen or himself, but the discomfort stays. It follows him into Plankton's army. Tired of working alone and being mocked, Plankton reaches for something bigger. He calls on his extended family to help him finally break into the Krusty Krab. For once, he thinks strength lies in numbers. He prepares speeches, draws up plans, and imagines a full-scale invasion. It feels like history in the making. But the second the army arrives, it becomes clear that he's not leading them. They're barely listening. They make fun of him, wander off task, treat the mission like a joke. Even in the middle of a so-called revolution, Plankton's voice gets drowned out by louder ones who don't care about his goal. He's surrounded, but he's never felt more irrelevant. And when the plan collapses, as it always does, he's not angry. He's quiet, almost tired. Because this failure was different. It didn't come from being outsmarted. It came from not being heard. From realizing that even when the world gives you a crowd, it won't give you meaning unless someone in that crowd believes in you. One villain, one rival, one dream has turned into noise. And Plankton doesn't know how to rise above it anymore. By the time we reach Spongicus, something in him is already shifted. He no longer builds restaurants or fakes menus. Instead, he builds a coliseum, a massive stone arena. There's just sand, stone, and spectacle. He doesn't want diners now. He wants attention. He wants applause, fear, recognition, something loud enough to drown out the quiet doubt growing inside him. At first, the coliseum works. People fill the stands. The Krusty Krab looks empty by comparison. It seems like he's finally won the crowd with force. Gladiators battle while the audience cheers. Krabs struggles to compete, but then SpongeBob sings. One simple song, nothing fancy. He sings about joy, about nonsense, about friendship, and the crowd leaves. Without protest, without drama. They simply stand up and walk out, one by one, back to the Krusty Krab. The show is over. The arena is forgotten, and he stands there as the crowd disappears, the noise fading faster than he expected. He's given up food, given up strategy, given up even pretending to care about the formula. And still, he wasn't enough. Not real enough. This moment doesn't break him, but it reaches him. It cracks something beneath the armor. He storms off, fuming. But there's something quieter in the way he leaves. Like even he can feel the emptiness behind the noise. Not defeated, but different. He keeps working, of course. Keeps building machines, plans, rewriting blueprints, shouting at Karen. But something about him is less certain. He pauses more, listens more. When plans fail now, the anger doesn't arrive quite as quickly. When Karen mocks him, he doesn't always fire back. It's not a transformation, not yet, but it's a shift. He's no longer a villain chasing a goal. He's a person standing in the aftermath of everything he thought would fix it. The formula wasn't the key. The army wasn't the answer. The stadium didn't last. The control didn't comfort him. The audience didn't stay. And worst of all, when he did get what he wanted, SpongeBob, respect, a full crowd, none of it felt like victory. It felt like distance, like playing a role that didn't match the person underneath. Plankton used to think crossing a line meant getting the formula. Now he understands. The real line is the moment when the old story stops making sense, and the line has been crossed. He'll still say he's the smartest. He'll still say Krabs is the enemy, but part of him has already stopped believing it. The world he once knew, the simple one where the only problem was Krabs and the only answer was stealing, has already disappeared. He can't return to it. Even if he builds another robot, even if he screams louder. He knows too much now. And even if he doesn't admit it, even if he doesn't want it, his story has already started to change. Plankton stopped being a villain the moment failure started feeling safe. And now, the real danger isn't losing, it's being seen. Some villains rise by making noise. Plankton isn't one of them. His rise, if you can call it that, is quieter. It comes in experiment, in empty rooms, in small moments when the plan should have worked but didn't. And every time, the silence afterward gets harder to ignore. He's been chasing the Krabby Patty formula for years, but lately, the chase doesn't look like ambition. It looks like stalling. Because somewhere in the back of his mind, Plankton has started to feel it. If he really gets what he wants, something deeper might crack open, and he's not sure what would be left of him after that. In computer overload, that fear becomes mechanical. Karen has always been his voice of reason, sarcastic, sharp, and the only one who sees through his act. But when Plankton replaces her with newer machines, what he wants is control without criticism, efficiency without judgment. He gets it. They obey perfectly, and he hates it because they follow without care. They don't challenge him. They don't roll their eyes at his failures. They don't make him feel seen. Karen did. When she leaves, she doesn't yell. She just stops being there. And for Plankton, that's worse than any insult. The machines help him build, but they can't help him be anything. In chasing power, he lost the only person who told him when he was wrong. And that loss lingers long after the wires cool. That longing for something real is why Single Cell Anniversary hurts in ways he can't admit. The episode isn't about a heist. It's just a date. One dinner with Karen to mark their time together. Plankton could be honest, just this once, but he isn't. He fakes it. Builds a robot waiter, a scripted evening, a fake version of himself that says the right things. Karen, like always, sees through it. She doesn't yell. She doesn't explode. She just says she knows. And for a few seconds, Plankton sits in silence, surrounded by candles and circuits, and has to face what that silence means. The one person who ever called him dear doesn't believe in him anymore. Because he's spent so long playing villain, he doesn't know how to be anything else, even for her. In the inside job, we watch him shrink even further. Plankton decides to enter SpongeBob's brain to retrieve the secret formula from memory, but inside SpongeBob's mind doesn't find a safe. He finds chaos, feelings, fear, joy, imagination. It overwhelms him. For someone who sees the world in terms of plans and blueprints, SpongeBob's messy inner life feels like an alien planet. He tries to make sense of it, tries to force logic into a world built on heart, but no matter how hard he pushes, SpongeBob's mind bends, resists, and absorbs him. By the end, Plankton is drowning in a personality too big to break down. It's the first time we see how fragile his own inner world might be by comparison. Later, in Shell games, Plankton becomes physically small in a new way. To steal the Krabby Patty formula, he disguises himself by hiding inside Gary's shell, literally crawling into someone else's life. At first, it's just another trick, but pretending to be Gary means slowing down. It means moving quiet, blending in, saying nothing. And the longer he stays in that shell, the more invisible he becomes. SpongeBob still talks to him, but not as an enemy, just as a pet. For a little while, Plankton is just there, and that stillness unnerves him, because when no one's looking, he's forced to sit in the silence he's spent years trying to shout over. He's built his identity around being loud, being dangerous, being known. But this is something else. The plan eventually fails, as it always does, but something in the way he crawls out of that shell feels quieter than usual. In Blood is Thicker Than Grease, Plankton's family open a rival restaurant right next to the Chum Bucket, and it works. They succeed fast, and without him. What's worse is that they don't take him seriously. They laugh, they ignore him, they treat him like a joke in his own town. It's humiliation delivered by people who share his name. Plankton wants to be seen, but when his own family sees him as a failure, even his usual obsession with Krabs starts to feel like a distraction. He tries to beat them with tricks, like always, but none of it matters, because deep down, he is begging them to respect him, and they don't. don't. The episode doesn't give him closure, which is exactly the point. No betrayal cuts deeper than the one where you're treated like you're not enough, even by the people who should know you best. In Spot Returns, Plankton shows a side we don't see often. He cares. About Spot, his tiny pet amoeba. Spot is loyal and always there. Plankton feeds him, talks to him, and even seems proud. For once, Plankton is someone who wants to be trusted. It's quiet, simple, and almost out of character. But of course, it doesn't stay that way for long. Plankton tries to use Spot in a plan to get the secret formula, and things go sideways. Spot runs wild inside the Krusty Krab, causing chaos. But still, he comes back. Plankton's glad, even if the plan failed. It's not a victory or a big moment, just a small connection between a villain and the one friend who never gave up on him. For Plankton, that kind of connection is rare, and maybe a little scary too. In Plankton's Pet, he brings Spot out into the open, showing him off with a strange kind of pride. For a moment, it feels like Plankton finally has something real, something good that isn't built on tricks or scheme. But when Spot grows out of control and escapes, causing chaos across Bikini Bottom, Plankton doesn't react like he usually would. There's real, quiet panic. He holds Spot close, terrified that he's about to lose the only thing he's ever had. That moment hits hard. It's about what happens when the act falls apart. When Plankton isn't the villain, the genius, or the failure, but a scared person trying to protect something real. The chase has always been his armor, his way to survive. But here, for the first time, he's simply holding on. The closer Plankton gets to success, the more it slips through his hand, because it doesn't feel like enough. Every step forward brings him closer to a truth he's not ready to face. Even if he finally wins, it won't fill the emptiness he's been running from. The formula can't give him respect. It can't rebuild broken trust. It can't make him whole. That's what he's chasing was a distraction. Now, he's no longer standing at the start of another plan. He's standing at the edge of something quieter and far more dangerous. Himself. He's hesitating. For someone who spent his life yelling, that silence means everything. Plankton's plans keep failing because deep down, he's stalling for time. And now, as Karen and Spot slip further from his orbit, the performance starts to crack in ways he can't control. For someone who builds machines to control everything around them, Plankton doesn't handle change well. For most of his life, he's survived by repeating himself. New plan, same motive. But lately, something inside that cycle has started to slip. Just beneath the surface, in the quiet moments where he doesn't know who he's supposed to be anymore. In Karen for Spot, that quiet feeling grows impossible to ignore. It starts simply. Plankton needs someone to watch Spot while he's busy with one of his schemes. So Karen steps in. What should be a small favor turns into something bigger. Spot starts spending more time with Karen, learning from her, following her, and showing loyalty to her. And that shift, seeing Spot connect more with Karen than with him, starts to eat at Plankton. At first, Plankton doesn't yell or get angry. He tries to act like it doesn't matter, but inside, it gnaws at him. Because this is about feeling replaced, feeling irrelevant. The one thing he's ever loved without conditions is suddenly more attached to someone else. Someone who, ironically, he often takes for granted. That hits harder than he thought it would. Because Karen is just being herself. Steady, competent, caring in her own robotic way. And Spot, the little amoeba Plankton raised, naturally moves toward that. Plankton lashes out, pretending it's about control or betrayal. But really, it's jealousy. Deep, emotional jealousy. The kind that comes not from being attacked, but from being quietly left behind. And that's what scares him the most. Even the things he loves seem to drift toward those who are more stable, more whole. People he's pushed away without realizing. That feeling doesn't disappear. It just waits, simmering under the surface. In Lockdown for Love, that feeling comes back sharper than ever. This time, it's about Karen. Direct and impossible to avoid. After another failed plan leads to the chum bucket being locked down, Plankton is stuck with the one person he avoids confronting emotionally, Karen. The only one who knows him too well to be fooled. Karen is tired of how Plankton handles failure. She's frustrated that he keeps pretending winning will fix everything, that stealing the formula would somehow erase all the ways he refuses to change. The lockdown forces them to talk, and for Plankton, talking is worse than losing. Because here's Karen, looking him in the eye, asking if he even knows what he's doing, and the truth is, he doesn't. Not in any way that matters. He says he wants success. He says he wants revenge. But none of it has made him feel better. Not for long. And she's always known that. The tension between them is everything Plankton avoids. Connection, accountability, softness. He's built a life where real partnership doesn't fit. Then blamed the world when no one stayed by his side. Now he's locked in with the one person who did, and he can barely meet her gaze. What makes it worse is that after all the lies, shouting, and failures, she stays. And Plankton doesn't know how to handle that. He doesn't know how to hold on to something steady, something that won't leave when he messes up. All he knows is chasing after things that reject him. That's the line he's walking now. The line between who he pretends to be and who he might actually become. And he's hesitating. Because if he takes one step toward something real, toward being known, not just feared, it means dropping the performance, letting go of the excuse that everything would be fine if Krabs didn't exist, letting Karen see him fully, letting Spot love him him without turning it into a trophy, letting the town laugh without needing to strike back. It means losing the mask he's worn for so long he doesn't remember what's underneath it. So he waits. He resets the plan, rebuilds the machine, rehearses the same lines, but it's all a little slower now. And he's starting to realize the real conflict was never between him and Krabs. It was always between him and the version of himself he's too scared to meet. Plankton's hesitation to face who he really is turns every plan into a delay tactic. But as the cracks deepen, what breaks is the man himself. If you guys are enjoying the video so far, make sure to subscribe. Plankton never thought he'd need to be more than clever. That was the rule. If he stayed sharp, stayed focused, and kept the plan alive, nothing else mattered. Those were weaknesses, and he had trained himself to treat them like diseases. But when you build your life around a single goal, when every failure gets patched up with more schematics, you don't leave much room for yourself. You don't leave much space for yourself. Just a blueprint. And one day, that blueprint stops working. In the episode Handemonium, Plankton reaches for something he never truly had: raw, unstoppable power. After being humiliated by Mr. Krabs in an arm wrestling match at Larry's gym, Plankton quietly returns to the chum bucket and electrifies its iconic glove, bringing it to life. The glove overpowers Krabs easily, causing chaos in Bikini Bottom, and Plankton uses it like he's finally become something more than a joke. But that power turns quickly. The glove begins to disobey him. It acts unpredictably, ignoring his commands and causing destruction. The weapon Plankton created doesn't need him, and that's worse than defeat. Even when SpongeBob offers to help, Plankton doesn't argue. He's quiet, aware that he's lost more than a fight. Together, they try to take the glove down, even dressing SpongeBob as a decoy to trick it with affection. But the disguise fails. The glove isn't fooled, and Plankton, once again, ends up sidelined in the story he started. In the final scene, Plankton returns to the chum bucket, beaten, exhausted, only to be crushed by a literal boot meant to replace the glove. Just a quick, brutal squish. It's played as a joke, but what it really shows is the cost of chasing power without purpose. Plankton lost his place in the story, and for someone who's spent his life trying to be noticed, that is the most painful defeat of all. In A Taste of Plankton, he doesn't try to charm or outwit. He goes straight for the gut, literally. He shrinks himself and sneaks inside of SpongeBob's body, hoping to access the Krabby Patty secret from within. It's a desperate plan, one that shows just how far he's willing to go. If he can't outsmart the system, maybe he can infect it. At first, he thinks it's brilliant. He tries to find the secret formula from inside SpongeBob, but the longer he stays, the more powerless he becomes. He's trapped inside SpongeBob, reduced to a presence no one notices, struggling to be taken seriously. It doesn't work. SpongeBob mostly doesn't notice him. It's treating him more like a harmless nuisance than a threat. And when he's finally expelled, it's like being flushed out of the system, dismissed, irrelevant. Plankton is being spit out by the story he thought he owned. And when it's over, Plankton doesn't scream. He just stands there, tiny, humiliated, barely acknowledged. All the control he fought for, all the plans he drew, all the noise, it amounts to nothing. He got inside the system and still couldn't change it. What breaks him is that he was ignored. And that kind of loss is harder to rebuild from, because it doesn't give him a reason to fight. It gives him nothing. That's what ties it all together. First, he gives up his identity, then he tries to steal someone else's. In both cases, he discovers the same truth. He doesn't know who he is anymore. Without the chase, without the prize, without the villain mask, there's no center. Just a long list of past versions, none of which ever felt real. These are symbolic deaths. Moments where the role he's been playing finally breaks apart in his hands. Moments where the world keeps turning, even after he stepped out of it. He used to fear being defeated. Now he fears something worse, being forgotten. And that's where we leave him. Not defeated in the way cartoons usually show it, but hollowed out, stripped down. A man who once shouted his name across the ocean now stands in a room and wonders if it ever mattered. There's no blueprint for what comes next, just silence. And maybe, if he's lucky, the start of something honest. Plankton loses everything chasing power, but then he starts to see that the real prize is something deeper. For most of his life, Plankton thought the formula would fix everything, not just his reputation, his whole sense of worth. If he could steal it, he could prove he wasn't a failure. If he could win, maybe he wouldn't feel so small. The world wouldn't laugh. Karen would believe in him. He could finally stop clawing for respect. But something strange happens after the fall. Moments start showing up where the formula doesn't matter, where control slips from his hands, but connection doesn't. In New Leaf, Plankton seems to give it all up. He closes the chum bucket, opens a gift shop, and tells the town he's changed. Nobody believes him, not even Mr. Krabs. But the longer it goes on, the harder it is to tell if it's real or just another scheme. He gives away presents, acts polite, doesn't insult anyone, and slowly people begin to relax. Even Krabs lets his guard down. They share a day together, laughing, relaxing, spending time at a carnival. It's awkward, but not fake. For the first time, Krabs isn't yelling, and Plankton isn't plotting. They're just being. And then Krabs does something nobody expects. He offers Plankton the formula, just gives it to him. That's the reward. The fact that somebody believed in him long enough to hand it over. Of course, it was a setup. The plan was real. Plankton takes the formula, tries to escape, and it all falls apart again. But the moment still mattered, because for a few hours, he wasn't a villain. He was someone people could talk to, someone Krabs could see as a peer. And when he loses it, it doesn't feel like a victory. It feels like something he broke that he didn't know how to hold. In the Krabby Patty that ate Bikini Bottom, he doesn't even try to steal. The town is in danger. A giant mutated patty has grown out of control, and Plankton steps in to help. He's small, but necessary, and for once, no one questions his presence. He's not leading the situation, but he's not the problem either. He's part of the team. His inventions matter. His voice is heard, and it doesn't end with him being chased out of town. It ends with him standing there, still included. That's not something Plankton is used to. He's spent years telling himself the only way to matter is to win, but here he is, helping save Bikini Bottom, and nobody's mocking him for it. He doesn't get the formula. He doesn't even ask for it, but the town doesn't laugh, and Karen doesn't lecture him. That silence, that's the reward. The chance to exist without being hated. In the final moment, when the patty explodes into hundreds of smaller ones, the town scrambles to eat the pieces. Plankton joins them as another face in the crowd, and no one kicks him out. He belongs, if only for a second. And for Plankton, that might be the rarest victory of all. But it's in the SpongeBob betrayal that everything finally clicks. Karen's become a threat. Her empathy chip is removed. The only way to stop her is for Plankton to do the thing he fears most: apologize. With real, honest words. He tries, fails, tries again. And when he finally says what he means, that he misses her, that he was wrong, Karen gives him the formula. Just like that, the dream is in his hand, and he throws it away. He tells her it's not what he really wanted, that the recipe was never the point, that she was. Karen, the person who stayed through every failure, every insult, every reset. And she hears him. They still lose. The town still turns on them, but when SpongeBob steps forward and calls it a love story, no one laughs. That's what he gets for all the failure. For all the times he was stepped on, ignored, defeated, a second of honesty. A moment where the formula doesn't matter, where he chooses a person over a goal, where someone hears him and he actually means what he says. It doesn't make him good. It doesn't fix the years of damage, but it gives him something he's never had before, a memory of being enough. And that's the real win. And for once, Plankton didn't let go of what mattered most. Plankton catches glimpses of connection and belonging, but still can't stop himself from turning every chance at growth into another battle to win. Before I tell you about that though, make sure you're subscribed. Growth doesn't come easy, especially when your whole identity has been built around failure, around proving people wrong, around standing alone. Plankton's had moments, tiny one, where something better was possible. Kindness, belonging, maybe even love. But for someone who spent his life building walls out of bitterness and sarcasm, being vulnerable just doesn't feel natural. It feels dangerous. In Single Self-Defense, we see him try to hold himself together after yet another humiliation. He's been stepped on, beaten up, mocked in public. His body's falling apart. His pride's worse. Karen, for once, doesn't insult. She worries. SpongeBob even tries to help, and for a second, it almost looks like Plankton might listen. He sits quietly, bruised and exhausted, while others try to nurse him back to health. But then the silence gets too loud. He can't sit still in it. He builds a high-tech battle suit, a massive helmet that blasts lasers, shouts commands, and looks like a walking tantrum. He straps it on like armor, not just against Krabs, but against his own reflection, because nothing scares him more than the idea that he might actually need help. So he gears up. The episode should be a comeback. It's framed like, but really, it's a retreat from the idea that maybe he isn't as tough, or as hated, or as different as he's told himself. He was offered care, and he turned it into a weapon. It happens again in Plankton's Regular. A fish named Nat shows up at the chum bucket and actually enjoys a chum stick. Plankton is stunned, and then he's ecstatic. He finally has a customer, a real one, someone who wants to be there. He doesn't take a breath and consider what this could mean. Doesn't talk to Karen about improving the menu. Doesn't wonder why it matters. He just clings to Nat like a child gripping their first trophy. His entire personality collapses into it. "I have a regular," he gloats. "I'm winning!" Mr. Krabs sees this and panics, because he knows Plankton's fragile. He sends SpongeBob to lure Nat back, but Plankton doesn't respond with strategy or gratitude. He treats Nat not like a person, but as a status symbol, proof that he matters. And when Nat wavers, when SpongeBob tempts him with a Krabby Patty, Plankton unravels. This could have been his chance to evolve, to show that his business could grow, that his food could improve, that he could be something more than the town's living punchline. But instead, he turns it into a war over one fish, and that's the trap. Plankton wants change, but only only if he can control it, only if it's on his terms. If it's slow, scary, or subtle, he runs. He was offered kindness once, and he turned away from it. Another time, he was given the validation he longed for, and still he rejected it. Because sometimes the hardest thing to face is the possibility that you were never one in the first place. Plankton tries to change, but keeps protecting himself, and when all his tricks fail, he's forced to face who he really is inside. Plankton has always played the villain, loudly, proudly, without apology. When the plan fails, he rewinds. When he loses, he rewrites the rules. If he can't win, he can at least cause enough damage to stay in the story. But every now and then, the world gives him exactly what he wants, and it's in those rare moments when he should feel triumphant that something deeper happens. Not celebration, not power, doubt. In It's a SpongeBob Christmas, Plankton hatches a plan that actually works. He infects Bikini Bottom with jerktonia, a chemical that turns everyone greedy, selfish, and cruel. SpongeBob, somehow immune, watches as the town descends into chaos. But to Plankton, it's progress. He's polite, well-behaved, and suddenly the nicest person left. Then Santa arrives. He declares Plankton the only citizen on the nice list. And for a moment, Plankton's lifelong dreams seem within reach. The Krabby Patty formula is in his hands. It should be the end of the story. Victory. Everything he's ever chased is handed to him by Christmas itself, but the episode doesn't linger there. The power Plankton wins feels strange and hollow. The town is a shadow of itself, and the joy is gone. There's no big moment of regret or speech. The story plays as a holiday tale with a twist, leaving Plankton holding the prize but quite celebrating. It's a subtle reminder that winning doesn't always feel like winning, especially when everyone else is lost. It's a glimpse at what power without connection can look like, but growth is fragile. In The Legend of Bikini Bottom, Plankton falls right back into old habits. He teams up with the Flying Dutchman to scare Bikini Bottom. His target? SpongeBob, the guy who's way too happy and annoyingly pure. Plankton thinks fear will finally win. He goes all in, dressing up, summoning ghosts, making creepy illusions. He wants to prove that fear beats joy every time. It doesn't. SpongeBob just smiles. He thanks the ghosts. He hugs the monster, and Plankton's whole plan falls apart. Not because SpongeBob's tough, but because Plankton's idea of fear is just wrong. Fear doesn't win by being louder or bigger. SpongeBob never bought that crap, and never will. What's shocking? Plankton doesn't throw a tantrum or vow revenge. He just walks away, just by fading into the background of a town that never really feared him anyway. Maybe he's finally starting to get it, maybe not. But this silence, it's new. And honestly, it's kind of pathetic. Then comes the ghost of Plankton, a final test, literal this time. He fakes his death. His spirit leaves his body. Karen holds a funeral. The town is more confused than mournful. It's a prank, of course. Another scheme in his long line of schemes. But while he's haunting Bikini Bottom, something strange happens. He sees his world without him in it, and he doesn't like it. When the Flying Dutchman steals his body, takes it for a wild joyride, and ends up getting beaten by the townspeople, Plankton doesn't laugh. He begs for his body back. He pleads. This becomes about himself, about the strange little creature he spent a lifetime abusing, denying, covering up with gadgets and slogans. He starts to see the difference between being hated and simply being gone. He's chased infamy for so long that he forgot what it means to just exist. When he's finally returned to his body, bruised, trampled, exhausted, he just mutters, "It's good to be alive." That's what these moments reveal. Not a changed man, but a stripped one. All the tricks fail, the mask falls off, and the games lose meaning. And what's left? Someone still standing. Someone who, after everything, still chooses to get back up. Not because the world needs a villain, but because maybe, just maybe, he's starting to wonder what else he could be. Plankton loses his mask and feels empty, but real change starts when he lets someone stay. Plankton isn't used to letting people help. His entire identity is built around independence. He builds the machines, he writes the code, he fails alone, he resets alone. It's predictable, and that makes it feel safe. But in Plankton's intern, that pattern starts to bend. It begins with Pearl. She's not exactly his ideal hire, and he doesn't seek her out. She's sent to the chum bucket as part of a class assignment as an unpaid intern, someone Plankton should reject on sight, but he doesn't. At first, it's purely transactional. She organizes inventory, files schematics, and offers customer service tips. Plankton rolls his eyes but lets her stay. That alone is rare. He never lets outsiders into his space unless there's a plan. Here, there's no scheme, just quiet utility. Someone showing up and doing things he never wanted to admit needed doing. Pearl treats it like any other internship, just another stop in a world of systems and supervisors. She treats him, oddly, like a boss, and Plankton doesn't know how to handle that. He doesn't become kind. He doesn't open up or share his story, but he tolerates her, answers questions, lets her label things, makes room, not emotionally, but literally, in the place he's always ruled alone. Pearl isn't impressed by his villainy. She doesn't pretend he's a genius or a threat. She just sees the Chum Bucket as a weird restaurant run by a small man who needs help, and she helps with competence. Eventually, the internship ends. Pearl leaves. She goes back to her life. Plankton goes back to his. But something shifts. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't talk to Karen about what he learned. But the changes Pearl made, the signs, the order, the structure, those things stay. He doesn't tear them down. It's easy to miss, but if you've watched Plankton long enough, you know this is new. Usually, everyone who walks into his world leaves humiliated or burned, but Pearl doesn't, and he doesn't undo what she gave. That's what he brings back with him. Not the formula, not applause. Something smaller, something more durable. A lesson in allowing help, in letting someone else see the mess and not flinch, in realizing the Chum Bucket isn't ruined just because someone else touched it. He doesn't turn into a hero, but he becomes possible. There's a crack in the armor now, and through it, something human gets through. When the episode ends, he's back behind the counter, back to routine. He's no longer the only one who's ever stood there with intention. Someone entered his world, saw the mess, didn't leave in disgust, and for once, he didn't shut the door behind them. That's not a full transformation. It's not supposed to be, but it complicates the story we thought we knew. It casts a shadow over every tantrum that came before, and it leaves a question hanging over every plan that comes after. Because once you've let someone in and you didn't push them out, you can't unlearn what that felt like. You can't go back to pretending you're completely alone. Pearl didn't change Plankton, but she reminded him that change was possible. And this time, he didn't run from it. Plankton starts off chasing power to feel less small, trapped in plans that always fall apart. Along the way, people offer him connection instead. Quiet moments he doesn't know what to do with. He resists, backslides, nearly breaks, but in the end, he doesn't close the door. He lets one moment stay, and that, for him, is new. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one with your favorite cartoon character.